All right. So I want to just start by saying thank you to Cindy and Robin, who will do our presentation today, and then Keely Carlton and Winter Haven Water Department for helping to coordinate it. And so without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Robin and Cindy to tell us a little bit more about the One Star Water Initiative.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just kind of frame this, and I'm trying to figure out who we have online. I know we got a bunch of folks from Winter Haven online. Do we have anybody else on here? Troy, I can't only see your first name, so I'm not sure who's.
Troy Whitfield from Engineering Solutions in Winter Haven, engineering
Okay.
firm.
Okay, awesome, good. So one external so far, and we may have more to pop on later, because in some regards, I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's good because I think we all have to be on the same page. So just to kind of recap, recent changes to Florida water law really have the potential to limit growth in Polk County if we don't come up with some solutions, and we're working on that. From using a multi-pronged approach. But this Florida water law changes limit public supply of water to what will be the 2025 demand. So whoever's here and needs water and can be documented by 2025, we can get that water from our traditional source, which is the Upper Florida Aquifer, a very inexpensive source of water. It's very clear, clean, pure water. It requires very little treatment before you can actually turn your tap on and use it. But you all know the growth that we're experiencing now, and you know that the gates are not going to close at 2025. So we're going to have a lot more folks coming into Florida. And while I always say we probably don't have a drop of water less than we've had a million years ago, what we do have is hundreds of thousands of more people to support with that same limited resource. So it's all about population growth and the incredible fast pace of that here in Polk. I think we were named not too long ago like the 7th fastest growing spot in the nation. So we're at a critical juncture for many things. Water just is one of them. But in order to ensure that growth can continue in Polk County, the Polk Regional Water Cooperative was formed in 2016, and they are aggressively pursuing alternative water supplies, non-traditional water supplies. So the Upper Floridan has been our go-to for like 99% of our water in years past. In fact, as long as I've been alive and most everybody else here. And now we're looking at the Lower Floridan Aquifer. So instead of drilling 800 feet to get to water, you're drilling 3,000 feet to get to water. That water is not nearly as good. It's very salty. It's got, it's briny and has salinity, and it has to be treated at significantly higher costs and then transmitted to where it's needed. So none of the future alternative water supplies are going to come in with a small price tag. And that's going to mean that ratepayers see a different rate moving forward. The best method we have for keeping rates low and keeping water available is conservation. And the best conservation tool we have is the one that I believe that Robin and I are going to present to you this morning. And it's called the Florida Water Star Program. And in essence, what it does is it allows cities to sort of, if you want to just say to extend the lifespan of that inexpensive Upper Floridan Aquifer water that we have now, and push off to some extent having to take as much of that alternative supply that is going to be at greater expense. It also protects the resource, which is what we're ultimately trying to do from the water management district's perspective, is we have to protect that Upper Floridan Aquifer, which feeds all of our lakes. Winter Haven is sort of an economy that's built around lakes. So it's important for us to protect them and their ties to the Upper Floridan. And that's part and parcel of why we're doing what we're doing. Interestingly enough, I attended the One Water Summit recently in Winter Haven, and I was gratified to see that the bevy of consultants, these are independent consultants that are working on Winter Haven's One Water program, separate and apart from the Water Management District, have identified this Florida Water Star program as the single most effective way to control or reduce water demand moving forward. Again, helping us, sort of elongate the time to which we need to turn to that alternative supply. So having given you sort of the why and wherefore, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Robin, who is our program manager, and she'll go over the high level nuts and bolts of the program so you'll understand what it's all about. But just to tell you, this is going to capture any new construction that might occur in Winter Haven. So it doesn't have any retroactive components, but it's for new construction for residential and commercial. So Robin, take it away.
Hi, good morning. My name is Robin Grantham, and I've managed the Florida Water Star program here at the district for just about a decade or so. The program has been active for about 15 years. It is statewide, so I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint on Florida Water Star. There's a lot of information I'm going to be presenting for you. So if you have any questions, just make a note and we'll go over all those questions at the end, because I may end up touching on it later during the presentation. I guess to begin, I'll give this a minute. Let me know when everyone can see my screen.
We got it.
All right, awesome. All right, so, well, Florida Water Star, what this is, it is a program that has specific criteria, as Cindy mentioned, for new construction. The criteria is for both residential and commercial, but for today's presentation, we're really going to be focusing on the residential portion of the program. Criteria is included for the irrigation system design and installation, that landscape, and inside the homes. I'm not going to cover all of the criteria for today because it's a lot of technical information, but I'll just be giving you a broad overview so you can see how those water savings are achieved. So if we started inside the home, we're looking at the fixtures like faucets, toilets, shower heads, making sure they're water sense. Water sense means that the water efficiency is going to exceed state code criteria. Likewise goes with larger appliances like clothes washers and dishwashers. That actually is the Energy Star label, which also use less water than state code. There are some other indoor criteria, but again, this is just the big picture. I would say though that, well, I know that the #1 water savings benefit of Florida Water Star is really outside in the landscape. And that hits on this criteria we're talking about right here, which is a maximum of 60% high volume irrigation in the landscape. Now, high volume irrigation are those, the spray heads, rotor heads, what you see that irrigate turf. So we're not actually limiting the amount of turf grass, we're just limiting the amount of irrigation that uses the most water. Builders have different options on obtaining this criteria. And this photo here, what this builder has done, which is really our ideal situation, is they expanded out those plant beds. So there's 60% turf between the front and backyards with high volume, but then they have expanded plant beds with micro irrigation. Other options that builders have chosen to do is they can install unirrigated Bahia turf in the backyards. And it's not that we're pushing Bahia, it really is more that Bahia turf is the only turf recommended by University of Florida that can survive long periods of little to no rainfall and still bounce back up without a permanent irrigation source. And lastly, another option that builders have done is they installed permeable pavers in the backyard spaces for like an outdoor living space with a grill area. Because again, it's reducing that amount of space that requires irrigation, but it's still permeable to help replenish the aquifer and reduce runoff. Other things we're looking at in the irrigation system are pressure regulation that ensures that the spray heads are operating at the manufacturer's specifications. Check valves. What those do are spray heads. Every time you turn off the irrigation system, every spray head leaks about 3 to 5 gallons of water. And if you've got a system that has, say, 16 heads at 3 to 5 gallons every time you irrigate, it can be significant. Check valves prevent that water from leaking out. And also we've got micro irrigation, and this is installed inside those plant beds, puts out less gallons per minute and applies the water right to the root zone of the plant. Another big element to conserving water is head-to-head coverage. What you see here is images of two different ways that sprinkler heads are installed. The top is the way they should be, and that is where one spray head reaches perfectly to that adjacent head. The reason why this matters is you see the photo on the left there on the top, it's nice even coverage. What we often see though is that spray heads are more similar to what you see on the bottom where they're spaced too far apart. What this means is some turf is going to get double the amount of water and some will get less. And that photo does show you that it's uneven coverage. And when this happens, homeowners are more likely to run their irrigation systems longer in the hopes that water will flow laterally and even out the turf. The reason this happens a lot is because as irrigation companies come in to bid for a large builder, if they put less heads in there, the bid is going to be lower and they'll be more likely to obtain the contract. So oftentimes we are telling builders and irrigation contractors to install more heads, which may seem a little bit counterintuitive, but it does impact the water use and it makes for happier residents. Other things we look at in the landscape are we work closely with University of Florida IFAS on their Florida Friendly Landscaping Program. So Landscape does incorporate their principles. We often do have them review the design plans in advance as they are horticulturalists and professionals, but we're looking at right plant, right place. We ensure that there are no invasive species and that plants are selected for their site conditions. And also we want to see an increase in tree shade of about 30% because it reduces evapotranspiration. That again was an overview of just some of the criteria, but here are the actual water savings. These were conducted in the field at actual homes by University of Florida. They did this study within the Toho Water Authority where they require Florida Water Star, as well as at On Top of the World in Marion County. What we found was on average, the annual water savings for one home is 48,000 gallons per year. While that may not sound like too great, if you all of a sudden multiply that out by even just 1,000 homes at 48,000 in 1 year, and then consider the lifespan of these landscapes and irrigation systems is 10 to 12 years. It is very significant real world savings. And then also another benefit are for your residents. Their annual utility bills are averaged about $530 less than those that have a traditional home design. And that is at current water rates. So those water rates, if they do go up, as Cindy mentioned, this will increase as far as the home buyer benefit. The cost for this to your builders has a broad range. It can go from $700 all the way up to $1,400. It really depends on how elaborate they choose to go within their landscapes. This photo here, this is the $1,400 range because they expanded those plant beds with micro irrigation and mulch. So on that end of the scale, it does cost more money. But on the other end, you look at builders where they choose to install Bahia in the backyards, they're actually spending less money for Florida Water Star, as Bahia is less expensive than St. Augustine or Zoysia, and they're not paying for that irrigation in the backyard. So it is very difficult to estimate that builder cost because again, it's their decision on how elaborate they want to go with their designs. So my role at the district with Florida Water Star is really to help you in so many levels and help the builders and those within the building industry. Starting out with builder outreach. For instance, today I'm going to be meeting with Ryan Holmes at 1 p.m. down in Polk County. I'll meet with the builders, their architects, their staff, and their contractors to make sure they understand all of the criteria. We also have many trainings. This is our accredited professional trainings. We host them within our district twice a year, but statewide they're hosted 6 times a year. Every time we host these, we end up turning people away because we meet capacity. Trainings we don't want to exceed 50, but it's an 8-hour training, and this is for landscape and irrigation contractors. They do an 8-hour in-person training to learn about how to install efficient landscapes and irrigation systems, and must pass a 4-hour exam in order to become accredited professionals with Florida Water Star. The other training that we have, and this is a benefit of the city if they choose to move forward with Florida Water Star, is that there's no involvement with your staff time as far as inspecting and ensuring criteria are met. There are Florida Water Star inspectors. They go through, again, an 8-hour training. Their training is online. And then they have to participate in 2 apprentice inspections with me on site. And that is if the builder chooses to obtain full Florida Water Star certification. We also do sales support, and this is we train realtor staff on how to upsell Florida Water Star. I will be doing a sales training next week in Polk again for Richmond Homes. They're having 53 of all of their sales managers come in, and we're going to go through a model home and discuss the criteria and how the criteria benefits the home buyers and helps them to upsell Florida Water Star. And with that, we provide them with customizable marketing materials. And last but not least, what we're doing today, which is working with local governments on partnerships. The first one listed here is rebates. We do have Florida Water Star rebates available in Polk County of $1,000 a home. There's not many left, and also builders have not taken advantage of the rebates. We wanted to offer those to see if that would help to incentivize builders to construct Florida Water Star, but that's not really the case. Really, and this is through conversations with builders for many years. I work very closely with them. The number one thing is that builders say, if you want us to do it, tell us to do it. They've got 10,000 other items on their plate. They like the rebates, they're not even taking advantage of them, even though it's mandatory. They're still not doing the rebates because it's one thing that they need to submit, but those are available to builders if they choose to take advantage. And with the ordinance, how most cities in Polk County are managing this is they're giving their builders 2 different options. And you'll see that on this flyer here. Oh, that's another item when I work with you in the city. I will be developing flyers for you. I'll develop your affidavits. I'll be reviewing the ordinance language. I'm there as your support. But this is just Davenport's, they've been giving builders 2 options. Option 1 is the builder has the home inspected by a Florida Water Star inspector, and they obtain actual Florida Water Star certification. So you would receive an actual Florida Water Star certificate from that builder. They would need to present that in order to get their certificate of occupancy. If they go this route with the inspection and certificate, they're also eligible for that $1,000 rebate. And that's option 1. Option 2, and this is what most builders have been doing, is not getting the actual Florida Water Star inspections completed. Rather, for this, is a little bit more time for the builder and a little bit more time for you as the city as well, but not significant. First, when they want to obtain their permit, they have to submit an affidavit, which I will provide for you. We'll work on that together. But they need to submit an affidavit saying that they understand everything that they need to do to meet the criteria. And then when they come in for their CO, they'll be submitting another affidavit saying they actually did what they said they were going to do. Now, again, on option 2, the downside is there's no actual official Florida Water Star inspection. But what we do offer as support from the district is it's more of an informal audit. We do not go inside the homes, but what we do is we have 5 compliance staff located within Polk County, and they'll drive through the communities and ensure that they're seeing pressure regulation on those spray heads, those check valves, and that they're not seeing 100% high volume irrigation, just like the big red flags. One other item on this is it is interesting that builders do self-police. That means that if builder A is in a community and sees that builder B is putting in 100% high volume irrigation, they call me. And that's because home buyers actually want to have more irrigation everywhere. So one builder is kind of losing out to the other builder because the other builder isn't following the policies. So they call me, and we have had circumstances in which builders have had to tear irrigation systems out of the backyard because of that. So it is good to see that self-policing. Right now, as far as ordinances and LDRs, we've got 11 different cities have done this now in Polk County. We've been speaking with you, obviously, and met with Lakeland recently. So hoping to keep pushing this forward as well with Polk County, but definitely gaining a lot of traction with it. And then the rebates that I mentioned, they're $1,000 a home here in Polk County. And then we also have, this doesn't really pertain too much to you, but Tampa Bay Water, they also have rebates and in that area too as well. All right, let me know your questions.
Robin, enforcement. if they choose option 2, where they sign the affidavits saying they're gonna do it and that they did it. And you guys do an audit and you find that they didn't do it. Who enforces that?
That would be the city. That would be the city. But for instance, I would be involved in that. I'm not going to say which city it was, but we did have a city in which the builder had received about 3 different, I do correspond and I email with the builder. So that way we know 100% that they know what they're supposed to do. And that builder put irrigation through the whole property, all high volume. And so I reported it to the city. And then I met with the city at their office and we drove out to the site and met with the builder and we flat out said, you have to tear it out.
So it becomes
The builder was not happy, but the builder was well aware in advance of what was required.
it's a code compliance violation. We could issue a code violation, basically.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right, Eric.
Okay. The affidavits, I guess, just
Yeah.
become part of our permit for a
Mhm.
single family home. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Eric, you guys would need to just add another checklist item, to make sure that you're getting that at permitting, that they understand, and we'll provide a flyer to be submitted to them at permitting. So there's no ugly surprises at the time of CO. Nobody wants that. Because we want to work with the builders as well. It's in everybody's best interest to make it go smoothly. And so then you'd have another affidavit that they would have to complete, and that they would submit and you would check off at the time that they come in for their CO.
Okay. And then I assume, I think I know the answer to this one, on the inside, the appliances and whatnot. If a homeowner, if their, washing machine breaks 5 years down the road and they replace it with a non-water star, nobody's gonna know.
It's one point in time. Yes. We get that question a lot too. Like,
Yeah.
what's to keep them from changing out their shower head? No, there's nothing to keep them from doing that, but you're going to be looking at 90% of the homes, nothing is going to change on it. So you're going to take the win, as Cindy always says.
Yeah, Eric, what we've observed and what has been proven in field observation and studies that we've done over with the Toho Water Authority next door to us in Osceola County is that people do not change these out. I mean, and let's think about it. The cost of a new dishwasher or a new washing machine or even a new irrigation system, if somebody's got one that's working and functional, the chances that they're going to just arbitrarily change that out because they don't like the silver one versus the black one versus the white one are slim. Robin's right. My gut on this tells me that even if 5% of folks that buy a home change out their appliances, you got a 95% win. So I always just say take the win.
Yep.
Save what
Makes
you
sense.
can. Yeah.
And I
Thanks,
do want to
Meredith.
add on the city as part of it. And this is actually a meeting I'm having with Eagle Lake today at 3:00. What I will do is once it moves into ordinance, if it passes, like I said, I will create those affidavits for you. I take the language directly from your ordinance and put that into the affidavits. And then I also will get your city logo and such. I will create that flyer and I'll get a bunch printed and I'll come down and sit down with your city staff and just talk through it one more time and make sure if you've got any questions or concerns. And then from the city, what I'll receive back is I have a large spreadsheet for every single city with a Florida Water Star ordinance. What I'll do is ask you to fill in the builder information in which the ordinance is going to be required. Like what development is it? What is the name of the builder and their contact info? Because then I will be emailing the builder and attaching the flyers and affidavits and copying your staff if they want to be copied, just so that way you know that your builders have been educated about the ordinance.
Do we have any builders on the call today? Because I'd be interested to hear if you've got questions about this or if you're already building to these standards in other communities.
I could claim maybe being a builder, but I'd be not a single family developer. I'd be interested in just briefly addressing what the criteria would be for commercial buildings.
Commercial, how that works is it's the same as far as indoors. It's the Energy Star or WaterSense appliances and fixtures. The difference with outside, when you're looking at either commercial or multifamily construction, it's not that nice 6,000 rough square foot lot. So what we do, instead of saying there's a max of 60% high volume, there's actually a water budget calculator that you would provide to your irrigation contractor. And if you are interested further on this, Carrie, you can send me an email and I will share that water budget with you. But what that is your irrigation contractor will list off for each zone your flow rates, how many minutes it runs and how many days a week in summer versus winter. And it will do an automatic calculation of how much water is being used per square foot annually. For Florida Water Star, it cannot use more than 25 inches per square foot annually. The way that we came up with that number is average permits for commercial areas use about 50 to 60 inches square foot annually with traditional construction. So for commercial Florida Water Star, typically to meet that criteria, you would need to have definitely an increase in either your plant bed area or some unirrigated space. So that is the one big difference. And that is because for commercial, we needed a way to have it much more flexible for you to meet those needs. And I'd be happy to send that to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sean and Keely, is that language in our ordinance or about around commercial, or Cindy or whoever's reviewed it?
I've reviewed it. That specific language for commercial is not written into there, but it does say that Florida Water Star criteria are required for commercial developments.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
want to have that language incorporated on the water budget calculator for commercial properties, just shoot the ordinance back over to me and I'll be happy to give you some recommended language for that.
Well, I think if it says it's required, then the water budget that you were just talking about calculator is the way we would implement it.
Yes.
You're covered. It's just that they'll have to, they'll have to go to a second step to look it up to see what the requirement is.
Eric, if we were to add that language, we have to start all over again, go back to the planning commission.
Oh,
and
Sean.
Right.
Okay.
I would just as soon leave it and just move it on to second reading.
Okay.
And
First
Robin,
read-
if you could send that to me as well, I'll make sure that gets out with we'll send the recording out to the full list and I'll make sure that that can get attached as well so that our developers can see what that is.
And what I'll do is I'll provide you attachments on an attachment with the Florida Water Star commercial criteria and also the Florida Water Star residential criteria list. So that way they'll have the list in front of them.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I think Sarah Beth, I think it's important to note that 11 municipalities inside Polk have already implemented this. So the builders that are building in Polk are very familiar with Florida Water Star. They're building to those standards all over the place. We're grateful that Winter Haven is going to get this done. We're also just in some level of progress, both at Lakeland and also in Lake Wales, who you all have read about the tremendous growth that's coming out in the Lake Wales area. All of the cities along the ridge and the northeast portion of Polk are in, and honestly, in some cases, it's been by necessity because they're all bumping up against the highest the top level of their water use permits, and they can't approve new development if they don't have the water to do it. So this is a way to keep development occurring, keep the economy moving, keep business thriving, which is clearly the mission of the chamber. And so the city is doing their due diligence to make sure that all of those things occur through this multi-pronged approach of not only just looking for alternative water for future growth, but also conserving what we already have.
Thank you. And Sean, can you go over the timeline a little bit for what the Winter Haven ordinance looks like, where it is now, and kind of when this would be implemented?
Okay, and I'm gonna have Eric jump in if I'm not generally correct, but the ordinance has had a first reading back in September. I have had some preliminary communication with the city attorney that we could probably take it straight to a second reading upon proper notification. I think the earliest we could do it would be November 14th. And that would be the final adoption of it.
Sean, I'm not aware of a first reading. We did present to the P&Z, but I don't know that we've actually had a first reading unless listen, I'm an old gal. Sometimes I can't remember.
Yeah, it was on September 12th.
Okay.
It was right
just
after the
well.
P&Z. We did back to back.
Yeah.
All right, got it.
I thought that was just at the planning level.
I think it was too. I don't recall coming in front of your commission. So let's double check and make sure we're not missing a first reading, guys.
Yeah, I don't
As to
specifically
the
recall.
requirements, as to the required criteria under the ordinance, when does that kick in? I mean, is it,
Upon adoption, it's.
yeah, I know that, but I mean, once it's adopted by the city, where does the requirement to comply with the ordinance kick in? Is it now a condition of getting a CO?
How that
Does it
works
apply
is,
to- It doesn't apply to anything that
Right.
previously gotten a CO or.
Right.
Right. how it works is that that's part of when I will sit down and meet with City of Winter Haven staff, because obviously you have some builders that have already constructed like 3/4 of phase one in one development, and for them to have to grow out and get new bids in the middle of building and in the middle of a phase, it's just not feasible, nor is it really working together well. So what we do is, or what other cities have done in the past is, depending on where you are in that permit process or where that development is, homes can be grandfathered in. And then when they're looking at, the next phase is going to start Florida Water Star. So those are discussions that I would sit down and have with the city. They would look at all of their permits and we would work through that together. Because again, we don't want to have situations in which a builder is having to go out in the midst of their construction plans and people with their expectation of having their new home and then getting all new bids in the middle of it. So we definitely take that into consideration, Carrie.
Any other questions?
I may have missed this. Hi, Robin, it's Brian. Is it the builder or the homeowner gets the rebate?
The builder does, because the builder is the one that would be absorbing any additional costs for Florida Water Star, and they're the ones that we're trying to incentivize to construct the Florida Water Star homes. So it does go to the builder.
I will mention right at this juncture that because we've had such low participation with builder rebates in Polk County, quite frankly, the builders have not just jumped all over that. And the district typically, the water management district typically does not incentivize things that are required by ordinance. And so those builder rebates, while they are available right now, I foresee a time in the not too distant future where the rebates will no longer be available, because this will just become the new best management practice and best standard for building in an area that has a limited water resource that we have to protect and ensure that growth can continue. So I just kind of want to put that on the table, and I don't want builders hanging their hats on that. Moving forward, it's available now. It won't be forever.
Any other questions?
I'll just have a general question. Abstractly or realistically, how is the district looking at trees in addition to incentivizing developers and or the cities or whatever to plant more trees?
I'm not sure that I can answer that holistically, but obviously this program requires that it really equates to about one tree. And
Like
you know, you all have, a large oak. You all have seen new subdivisions go in where it's just bare turf. There's no plant beds, there's no nothing. So in reality, even adding that single tree gives you a more aesthetically pleasing look to the new construction. So it's beneficial. Trees are beneficial, but the district hasn't taken a position on tree cover. That's really in the purview of the municipalities and their codes and ordinances.
Okay,
I can kind of elaborate on that. Most of our PUDs require tree planting requirements. And we've recently updated our single family districts that the new subdivisions that develop under straight zoning also got a tree planting requirement to some degree.
And whatever the more stringent requirement is, I mean, we don't supersede the municipality. It's whatever the city's requirement is, if it is more stringent than what's required for Florida Water Star certification, then you go with the city's code.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hi, Dave Carter. I see you joined.
Well,
Thank you. It's very interesting. Good stuff.
Thank you, Cindy and Robin. And I believe, Keely, you had some information to share with us on One Water.
Yes, hi, I'm Keely Carlton. I'm the Water Program Administrator with the Winter Haven Water Department. So I just kind of wanted to segue, and I think the tree question might be a really cool segue into the One Water Master Planning effort. I don't know how many of you on the call kind of heard about what the city has been up to, but you know, in regards to all of what Cindy kind of and Robin laid out, you know, water conservation used to just kind of be this fluffy, feel good type of thing a utility used to do. And, you know, not so much anymore. We kind of need to do it to continue to move forward and grow and develop. I am going to just hit on some minor points here. Let me see if I can share my screen of our One Water Master Planning effort. This effort probably deserves a whole hour and a half of a presentation to dive really deep into it, but I just kind of want to do a general overview to show how this Florida Water Star is fitting into a bigger piece of keeping Winter Haven, but also growing and developing as well, and thriving, because that's what we're doing here. Let me see if I can share my screen. Bear with me. Can we see my PowerPoint?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is it full screen or?
It is not full screen. There we go.
All right, so basically our One Water Master Planning effort here in Winter Haven is tied to managing our water resources. It comes with our utility master planning, which is our potable water, our sewer and wastewater, and our reuse. You know, right now we're generating more reuse. We're going to be generating more reuse as we grow and develop. How can we utilize that water to augment lakes, use our stormwater to you know, create natural, better natural systems and such. So all of the One Water Master Plan touches just various aspects of community planning. This all kind of started back in the year 2000, so over 20 years ago, when the Vision by Design, this was a chamber effort, came online and said, you know, Winter Haven is a very water-centric community. So we started planning around our water resources in Winter Haven. And here we are in 2022 with a One Water Master Plan. Basically, it's how we can balance our water budget with the growth. As we were just discussing, we know our aquifer is being depleted. Right now, you kind of can't tell when you look around Winter Haven. There is more water here than I've seen in the past 13 years that I've actually lived in Winter Haven. But I do know that there was a time that our canals, you know, we couldn't put boats through them. So a lot of us on this team for this effort have been here in Winter Haven and truly understand how water works within Winter Haven. So I think, you know, understanding that balance between the growth and development and thriving, but also managing those water resources, because people come here, we're so unique. We've got our lakes, our water resources are just what is very attractive about Winter Haven. So how do we keep that feel, that small town feel, that really water-centric feel, but continue to thrive economically? And that's, you know, finding that happy balance between capturing water that falls into Winter Haven that naturally wants to flow away from us. So, you know, everything here in Winter Haven just truly wants to just go away downstream, where the headwaters of the Peace Creek, which flows into the Peace River. So, you know, we're going to benefit here in Winter Haven, but this whole plan is a regional approach as well. Like I said, that was bare minimum, bare bones of the actual plan, and it deserves a lot more time. And the other members of the team to chime in on what this plan actually looks like. But the Florida Water Star and implementing this and getting that moved forward and pushed forward is part of this big puzzle piece that the city is working on. So just kind of wanted to give you guys a little taste of that, and how Florida Water Star is going to fit into that plan.
Thank you. Any questions on One Water?
If we could back up, I did confirm we have not had first reading on the Florida Water Star.
Okay, so that would be then the November 14th meeting would be a first reading.
That would be correct.
So timeline wise would then roll out like first of
The-
the year.
The ordinance would move on to second reading, be November 28th,
Okay, that will,
would actually become effective immediately.
okay, so it would be effective by
Yeah.
December. Any other questions? All right, well, that will conclude our presentations for today. Do we have any general questions for either Eric or the team from the city? None. Man,
I might,
Eric,
Sarah Beth, I might as well harp on this. How's our tree census doing in the city, and what are we doing about encouraging planting more trees, particularly in the downtown area?
Keely may have a little more on that than me, I'm not sure, but I do know that we've got LiDAR imagery, and they have taken a, I guess you would call it an audit of all trees, public trees that are in right-of-ways or parks or wherever throughout the entire city. So I know they've got an inventory, and whenever they get an opportunity to, you know, add to that supply of public trees, they do so. I know that annually, Keely, we get a supply of trees from somewhere, I don't know, and we go out and plant them everywhere. Do you know more about that?
Yeah, so that's more on the natural resources side of things, and nobody from the city side of natural resources is here to represent currently, but I do work very closely with them. They do hit home on those tree planting days, as Eric did say. I think the funding sources come from the tree service, the forest service. Sometimes there's grants, anything that they can get a hold of, they're doing. But there is a big push, and with their, gray to green aspects that they're working on with stormwater, there's another big push that's in tandem with that, and it's the tree cover. So it's definitely being addressed, it's looked at, and they're doing an excellent job at finding those areas that need the tree cover, and they do have the inventory, as Eric said. So but that's going to be more of a natural resources question. And maybe if we come back to this group with more of the One Water master planning stuff, we can get them to come, along and present on their tree aspect.
And then on the private side, Carrie, private development, like Sean indicated before, all our single family districts now require the planting of a tree in the, I think, front yard.
Front and rear.
Of all new single family homes. We require, is it 40 or 60% tree canopy coverage on commercial projects over like parking lots, things like that?
It's depending on the situation, it's 40 to 50%.
Okay.
We typically, they do the average of 45.
And all our landscape buffers, anything that requires a landscape buffer in our code, has a tree element, number of trees per linear foot that's required in that landscape buffer as well.
I will admit, we're starting to have more and more trouble with getting trees in our buffer yards. Too many utility conflicts are starting to come up, both over and underground. So I think we're going to have to take an evaluation of that and see where we go next.
That statute is a tree killer.
Yeah.
That ordinance.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Eric or team? All right, anything else for the good of the order? Eric, do you guys have anything any scoop we can get today?
No, I don't think so.
No scoops?
No.
Sarah Beth, thank you so much for allowing us an opportunity to present, and thank you to the city folks for setting this up. It was great for us to be able to do this today.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well,
appreciate it.
again,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Cindy, Robin, and Keely. We really appreciate it. We have again recorded this meeting. We'll be sending it out to the full business and development distribution list again. We had several email saying that they had things going on today that they weren't going to be able to jump on, but that they were very interested in the program. So we will send that out with our next meeting date. So our next industry roundtable will be in January, and we will send you a specific date later on in that email. So be on the lookout for that.
I completely forgot you were recording and I ate my breakfast while you guys were presenting.
Well,
We
the good
do.
news is it should for their presentation have only showed Cindy and Robin. So,
Okay.
but thank you guys and have a wonderful day.